Hello and welcome to another TLDR US video. In reaction to the coronavirus, states across the nation have encouraged their residents to take action to prevent the virus's spread. But over the past couple of weeks, more and more states have been pushing legislation to reopen their economies and relax social distancing. So today, let's look at who's advocating for this reopening, what they're doing, and what public health officials are advising. If you like our States with Shoes graphics, then I have some good news for you. We've got some merch featuring pretty much every state that we've designed so far. If you click the link in the description and head to the store, you can find photos of every state available. Then, after clicking on your state, you can use the drop-down menu to choose the products you want and your preferred colour. Find your state and support TLDR by clicking the link in the description. Also, comment below the states you want to see us add next, and we'll release the most upvoted in the coming days. When it comes to states pushing to reopen, the state that's been getting the most attention in recent days has been Georgia. The state's Republican governor, Brian Kemp, has made the news in the past for some questionable comments about the coronavirus, especially his assertion in early April that his administration had only just learned that the coronavirus could be spread asymptomatically. He wasn't the only one saying this though, with New York Mayor Bill de Blasio also making a similar claim and facing heat for that. But Kemp's firmness on the issue garnered Georgia a national spotlight. So, needless to say, the governor has made a few waves when he announced that his state would begin to allow businesses like gyms and hair salons to reopen in late April. He claims that the economic situation is unsustainable, and that Georgia's coronavirus numbers are looking reassuring enough to begin letting businesses return to normal activity. This move sparked criticism from a number of places. The mayors of Atlanta and Savannah, Georgia's two largest cities, both expressed anger at Kemp's decision quickly after his announcement. He has also faced criticism from a somewhat less expected source, President Trump.
I told the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, that I disagree with his decision to open certain facilities which are in violation of the Phase 1 guidelines for the incredible people of Georgia. They're incredible people. I love those people. They're great. They've been strong, resolute, but at the same time, he must do what he thinks is right. I want him to do what he thinks is right. Phase 1, we're going to have Phase 2 very soon, is just too soon. I think it's too soon. And I love the people. I love those people that use all of those things, the spas and the beauty parlors and barber shops, tattoo parlors. I love them. But they can wait a little bit longer, just a little bit, not much, because safety has to predominate. We have to have that.
In his Monday press briefing, Trump, in no uncertain terms, made clear his displeasure with Kemp's decision. This is a significant shift in the president's messaging, especially from his recent tweets calling for the liberation of certain states. Trump is clearly hoping to send a message to other Republican governors currently contemplating reopening. It's also likely that the White House is hoping that Trump's caution on reopening will help people forget the press conference last week where he appeared to suggest that people should ingest toxic household cleaners to cure the coronavirus. Whether Trump's message of patience will be heeded, however, is a slightly more ambiguous situation. But the fact that the White House is saying it at all is a notable change, especially because Georgia isn't the only state trying to reopen. Numerous states across the nation are also beginning to ease up on their restrictions. Alaska, Tennessee, and Montana have all gone slightly further than others, with their governors planning on allowing most businesses to reopen, with some restrictions on gathering numbers. Others, like Colorado, Mississippi, and Minnesota, are being more selective about which businesses can resume activity, but they're still pushing towards reopening. It's also worth noting here that many of these states have Democratic governors. In recent weeks, it's been a popular narrative that Democrats have been more cautious and Republicans are more inclined to reopen soon. And while there may be some truth in that in certain states, it's less true in other areas. Montana's Democratic governor, Steve Bullock, for example, seems to have a quite similar strategy to Alaska's Republican governor, Mike Dunleavy. Both, for example, have begun to lift restrictions on businesses as long as their customers maintain social distance. But while there might not be a large partisan divide on this issue, that doesn't mean that the country is unified. As many have predicted, it's the states with smaller populations that are trying to get back to normal soonest. Both Alaska and Montana are both vast and have thinly spread populations. This has both helped keep case numbers relatively low and made politicians feel more comfortable with the idea of reopening. Meanwhile, heavily urbanized states like New York and California are appealing to people to continue staying at home. The notable exception here is Texas. Home to both hundreds of miles of rural farmland and three of America's largest cities, Texas has been an interesting case. While cities like Houston and Dallas have imposed heavy restrictions from early on, the state government in Austin waited longer to impose such restrictions on the entire state of Texas. And in the recent days, Republican Governor Greg Abbott has announced that he'll let the state's stay-at-home order expire, and that he plans to allow businesses to begin reopening at 25% capacity. The move was less popular in cities like Houston and Dallas, but even some there are ready to see the economy reopen. But let's talk about reopening the economy for a moment, because despite its frequent use, it's a somewhat misleading phrase. Even in the states that are allowing for the loosening of rules, businesses are only permitted to operate at a small fraction of their standard capacity, meaning that it's unlikely that these moves will bring the economy rearing back. And it's here that it's worth discussing the bigger picture of economic recovery. There's a great deal of debate among economists about what the recovery will look like. Recoveries are generally described by the shape of the economic graph, with the best case scenario being a V-shaped recovery, where the economy comes roaring back to where it was before the virus hit. The worst case scenario is an L-shaped recovery, which in itself is a misleading phrase, because that would most certainly not be a recovery. An L-shaped response would mean that the economy continues at pandemic levels even after the pandemic itself comes to a close. Between those two are a variety of other responses, but experts are becoming increasingly convinced that a V-shaped recovery is overly optimistic. This is not to say that the economy is doomed, or that we're headed towards a decade-long depression, but it is unlikely that businesses will be able to simply pick back up from where they were before. The fractional capacity at which businesses in less restrictive states are beginning to operate at is a clear indicator of this. Many businesses, especially small and local organisations, operated on small profit margins even before the pandemic hit. Needless to say, 25% customer capacity is not going to bring back a triumphant return, leading some to question if it's really worth the risk, and if the government should be stepping in to help them instead. Regardless, what we're more likely to see is a gradual and cautious recovery, as people slowly become more and more comfortable in public places. This, of course, will only happen when the virus becomes less widespread. After all, most people aren't going to want to frequent restaurants and malls if it means putting their lives at risk. So, what are the public health officials advising? Do they support what states like Texas and Montana are doing at the moment? Well, the short answer is that they're hesitant. In a response to Texas's gradual reopening, Neil Chumba, the Dean of Health and Public Services at the University of North Texas, made several statements on the status of public health in the state. He said that a reopening could possibly be safe if everyone wears masks in public, but he said that he's still worried about the infection numbers. One of the big issues he raised was that of testing. The lack of widespread testing has been an issue for the US since day one of the pandemic, and it continues to hinder the response and reopening attempts. Basically, without near universal testing, no one can be sure that they don't have the coronavirus and aren't transmitting it asymptomatically. This is one of the biggest worries for health officials, who argue that before life can really return to normal, even those without symptoms need to be tested regularly. Both federal and state governments are very far away from this goal, and it's this that's really causing hesitancy in health officials when it comes to letting businesses resume. If another outbreak occurs, strict social distancing would have to be brought back into place, delaying economic recovery and the return of normal life even further. It's this worry that's led to most states deciding that the best policy is to wait for more universal testing to be in place. While this will keep their residents at home longer in the short term, it could end up shortening the total length of quarantine in the longer term, as other states might be forced to go in and out of quarantine to combat the re-emergence of the virus. And no matter when states attempt to reopen, they're going to face an increase in the number of cases, as people begin to mingle with each other once again. Most officials agree that this is unavoidable. The problem is finding the best moment to reopen. And that's the struggle that the US and every other country in the world is having to cope with at the moment, and we'll have to carefully work out an answer to in the next few months. Because until a vaccine is widely available, it's always going to be a situation of careful balance and caution. What do you think though? When should your state or country be reopening? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, we'll keep you updated as the events play out in the coming months, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon down below. Special thanks to our Patreon backers for making videos like this one possible.